everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're back with another session of jewelry, polymer clay quilt square jewelry. And I love this. This is so much fun. Right here, I have a piece of bronze that I've rolled out on my number 3 setting with my Atlas pasta machine. And yes, I am bringing in a new fun stencil. Yes, this is a paisley kind of stencil done by Puocaun. I will be putting a little link in the description area for you guys to find that. So if you want to go ahead and buy that set, you can. I thought this has to be done. I also brought in some of my white acrylic paint here. And yes, I'm using my finger this time. Sometimes it's just easier, you know. I feel like, you know, the less muss fuss kind of thing with paint. If I can do it, I'll do it. And then I'm just trimming off the extra because I went a little bit over, trimming off the extra here. And then once I get that trimmed off, I'm going to bring in my square cutters and I'm going to cut 4 different squares here. A large one, a medium-sized one, and 2 smaller ones. And we'll use that to create our jewelry. All right, so I decided to start with the mid-sized square first. And right here, I'm bringing in my blade. I'm just trimming it up just a little bit, or, you know, making sure all the edges are nice and straight. Once I have that done, I rolled out, this is kind of like a light beige with a little bit of glitter in it, light beige glitter kind of square. And this light beige square was rolled out on a number 6 setting with my Atlas pasta machine. Now this measures out to be about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And then I'm going to take that particular square and we're going to cut it into 4 pieces. And those 4 tiny little pieces we're going to put in the corners of each of our little paisley square. Oh, I love this. I'm sorry. I'm getting excited about this. And me over brown. I'm not a huge brownie guy, you know. A brownie guy. Well, I love brownies. Don't get me wrong. Who doesn't love chocolate, right? Anyway, I'm going to put the little tiny beige squares right in the corners of each of those. And then once I have them in place and I have it all formed up the way I like it with my blade, I'm going to bring in my little needle tool and we're going to start making little tiny stitches on our little tiny corners here on our quilt square. Now, once you get all of your little stitching put into the quilt, we're going to bring in my quilt, I want to say my Kaleidoscope here, which is done in browns. And you don't have to have a, how do I say, quilt square, or I should say a kaleidoscope. I'm getting it messed up. You don't have to have your Kaleidoscope cane look exactly like this one. All you have to do is just create a Kaleidoscope cane in general using browns and whites and a little bit of black to make sure you have the line in it. Once you have that done though, I'm doing the 4-part one here, right? So you know, the square kind of Kaleidoscope. I cut this into 4 sections and then place them right on the corners over the top of that light beige. And then I just conform that with my blade so that it will just be right in the corners, a very tiny amount. Now, once I have my Kaleidoscope corners in, all right, I'm going to bring in a heart here. And this heart was just a hard piece I had. I was just thinking about, I thought I had some extra hearts stored away in my stash usually, right? And I was like, this would be kind of fun using some hearts, right? Pre-formed, pre-made in polymer clay. Well, the more I started thinking about that, now let's go ahead and make some more hearts, right? So I brought in my medium type pink and I made a bunch of tiny little hearts, and then I made some more larger hearts. I didn't know which ones would really work the best, but I made a bunch of those, and along with some large ones, and I thought, let's go ahead and place that into this particular quilt square pattern. And when I started doing this with the mid-sized quilt square, I thought, okay, we have to do it throughout. So I made a bunch of little medium-sized hearts and a bunch of white hearts and so on. Anyway, the one thing I did discover, my clay gets really sticky, okay? And I wanted to mention this. My clay can get really sticky, especially when I've made hearts or any kind of thing, and it sticks down on that tile. When you have a little tiny piece like a heart, usually I like to bring in my needle tool. Well, I found if I just slipped my blade under just slightly on the heart, it actually worked better than me using my needle tool, because sometimes the needle tool just, mess it all up. Whereas if I brought in my blade and I just do that little scissor motion back and forth to get that little tiny heart up, just slightly, just a little bit, and then bring in my needle tool, it was easier to get the little piece up off of my tile surface. And I will have to mention that this clay, I rolled this out thin. This was like on a number 6 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. So the little tiny hearts, they're little tiny thin pieces. You want to get that up. This was a much better option for me. So just a little FYI, quick, try this. I think it'll work for you. I think you'll love that. Now, the other thing I want to mention here is, as I was putting these hearts on, the middle heart is baked. It's already baked, okay? And I had to bring in some liquid clay, and I placed a little bit of that liquid clay down in the center of the heart to attach the other little hearts I wanted in it. And I did not use my super glue. I decided to stay away from that because it really didn't matter. I mean, when I'm using my eye pins to make sure I've got the nice, fasteners in for everything, for my earrings and everything else, yes, I will use a little super glue there, and I'll use a little bit of my liquid clay. But in this case, it was pretty much clay to clay. I really didn't feel I needed to go ahead and use the super glue. So from here, I'm just going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I create up this mid-sized quilt square jewelry piece. All right, so now we're going to start working on the large quilt square, and this is going to be another pendant piece, and yes, it will be hung on point. Sorry. Ever since I heard that term, it just seems to be the thing that I just remember in my head. It's like ever since a tile guy told me that. Anyways, I'm bringing in some saran wrap here, and I do suggest using saran wrap to cut out your squares. It does help a lot. And I decided to go ahead and run that I want to say that it was the same clay was run through on a number 6 setting this time around. So this is pretty thin, all right, because it's going to go right over the bronze. The bronze is already fairly thick. I didn't want it terribly thick. Anyway, I'm going to cut this down where I'm taking off the soft edges of the square, and I'm going to place it down on one side of our little paisley bronze square, and just kind of, pat it down just slightly, use your blade if you need, and then I just like to cut up the excess right off of that square, just kind of conforming it to the original square. Once you have that, again, you're going to take your needle tool, you're going to start making those wonderful little stitches. I can't help it. I love stitching in polymer clay. I hate sewing, but is that weird? Yeah, that's weird. Okay, I'm not a big sew guy, okay? Maybe that's why I love quilts so much, because it's the one thing I just don't do. but I can pretend to do it in polymer clay. Anyway, I'm then bringing in that same kaleidoscope cane, and I'm going to cut off another square, and I had a few pieces extra laying around, and I'm going to place that on the one side here, just kind of falling off the edge. We're going to make that conform to the square again. Once I have that, I'll bring in my little clay hearts and finish this whole piece up. So once more, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I create this larger pendant quilt square piece. Quilt square piece. Okay, so now we're going to start working on the small squilt quilt squares. Oh boy, am I having trouble with this today or what? Anyways, the smaller quilt squares, I'm bringing in that glittery beige kind of clay one more time. And yes, it was rolled out on a number 6 setting, okay? And I'm laying it point to point, right? And I'm going to conform that little beige piece to the original square. I don't know. For some reason, I just thought this would be kind of fun. Make it, go halvesies on it, right? Halvesies. Anyway, making it going from point to point, I'm going to cut that to the original square. I'm going to do the same to the other one, mirroring it, if you will. And then I'm going to bring in some nice little hearts. I'm going to place, 2 of them in the center. And then I thought I'd go ahead and place a couple on just above and just below. So right on point. Ah! Anyway, once I have that beige clay on there, I'm going to bring in the hearts. We're going to place them on the corners. And then once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and bake this, right? So the earrings get baked, the pendant pieces, will be baked. Once I have those baked though, we will come in and I will back all of this on my black clay. And the black clay will be rolled out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. I'm going to bring in my eye pins. I'll make my little hook feature like I always like to do. And I'll place that on the black clay, which is unbaked, of course. I'll bring in the liquid clay, the super glue, have that put that on the hard piece that's baked, put it down on the black clay. I'll trace it out with my needle tool, and then I'll bake it once more and then put in the earring findings and all the other little good stuff, right? So from here though, I want to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys just watch my hands talk and have a little bit of fun just enjoying me create these wonderful little quilt squares in polymer clay. All right, so this is the end result of creating my quilt square jewelry. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you guys are thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.